Okay, so this one's a big time game for the Texas football program, coming off a win against the Iowa State Cyclones. They're 5-2. It was an ugly game, but you get the win, so you can't be that disappointed in yourself. They're going against Oklahoma State. So this is one of the big tests coming into the season was how do you perform against the Oklahoma teams? Well, you beat one, but this week you get to travel to Stillwater. You get to take on the Oklahoma State Pokes. They're coming off a loss. They went against TCU. Overtime game, lost in double overtime, I should say, 43-40. Back and forth game, kind of a bad game for them to lose. Up 30-16 late, up until about the 9-minute mark, and then they give up the touchdown. They give a couple touchdowns. They fall behind. They're able to get into overtime. It falls apart for them at the end. Ugly performance for Gundy and his guys. What do you think about this matchup early on coming in?
Well, this one feels like a little bit of a toss-up. That's what I kind of think coming into this is that Texas, who kind of resides in that second tier group right now of the Big 12. I think all the Big 12 teams might finish with 9, and then one team might get 10 wins if they all beat each other up in a loop of mediocrity, usually reserved for the Pac-12. But Texas is kind of in that tier right below Oklahoma State, or at least where Oklahoma State expects to be. Like Oklahoma State, if you remove Oklahoma from the equation, Baylor's having a poor season. Oklahoma State is as good as last year's Oklahoma State team. It's a lot of similar players. They've done well for themselves in the transfer portal, like relative to other teams. Like they can get 4 stars into that program through the transfer portal because of reputation. And Oklahoma State's a team that probably, I think most of us thought would be the favorite in the Big 12, and losing to TCU complicates the math a bit. And one of the spots in the Big 12 championship game is obviously still in Oklahoma State's reach. I'm just interested to see how they match up against Texas, because both of those teams do things so differently on the offensive side of the ball, and defensively they look like Big 12 teams now and again, but Oklahoma State's identity is very different than Texas's identity this year.
So last year when Texas played Oklahoma State, they were not yet dead in the water. They were still like 4-2 going into that game, if I remember correctly. And at the time, Oklahoma State was undefeated. Obviously, they didn't lose until the very end of the year. And Texas had a lead. This is where things started really spiral on them. Texas was actually leading in that game in the third quarter, 24-13. From that point forward, Oklahoma State, field goal, touchdown, field goal. They were able to outscore them and win that game 32-24. This was one of the things that Sark was getting killed on, is just not being able to have that killer instinct and put teams away. To his credit, seems to have been something that they've kind of fixed, not really kind of fixed. It's gotten better. But you look at the Iowa State game, how they performed in that game. We talked about it. We talked about it in another video. Go ahead and check that one out on the channel. But in there, you are a 16.5-point favorite, and you're not putting away Iowa State. That's frustrating. So you go into this game. This is a game that should be easy to get amped up for, right? Yes, you probably are the favorite. We're seeing some early betting lines to suggest that Texas is the favorite, which is crazy to me because I still think Oklahoma State, yes, they lost the game to TCU, but they're still ranked number 8 going into the weekend. So it's kind of crazy that Texas would be the favorite on the road in that. 2.5 points we're seeing according to DraftKings as of today's recording. But regardless of what the betting line is, you're still the underdog to Oklahoma State. This is a team that beat you last year. That needs to be the talking point to Sark. He has to remind those guys that you aren't made men yet. You need to be able to go into Stillwater and get this win. If you do that, then everything's gravy. You beat both Oklahoma teams this year. You might drop another game late in the year. It's just something that I feel as though after the Iowa State performance I can expect. I don't expect Texas to run the table from this point moving forward. But you saw your low-end performance with Quinn Ewers in the lineup, right? 3 touchdowns. Kind of a bad day by Quinn. Now can Quinn be more consistent, perform on the road against this very good team?
But also, if you go 9-3, which is a game above what we expect, we both expected Texas to finish this year. If you go 9-3 and 7-2 in conference play, tiebreakers will go your way and you're in the Big 12 championship game, because only TCU is undefeated in the, well, I guess Kansas State is for now, but only TCU is undefeated in conference play. So everything could go your way if you get those 2 losses, which obviously we're just kind of writing down they're going to fuck up at some point here down the road. But this Oklahoma State game is the one at the start of the year where I said, I mean, the Big 12 is totally flipped on its head, but I said there are probably 3 teams that Texas will be underdogs against: Oklahoma State, Baylor, and Oklahoma. Now, Oklahoma has totally fallen off the face of the earth, and that hasn't happened to an Oklahoma football team in both of our entire lifetimes. And maybe you could swap TCU in there. I don't know what a betting line would be between Texas and TCU, but this is one of those games where it's another measuring stick. We talked about Bama was a measuring stick. Oklahoma was a measuring stick. Now you get another one of those games, and it kind of alternates like that. They have one game where they're heavy favorites and should, by virtue of having all those 4 and 5 stars and one of the top 15 offenses in college football, win. And then you have a game against a team who you're ultimately trying to reach within 3 years of the Sark era.
So the remaining schedule for them, so they have Oklahoma State obviously this week, Kansas State the following, TCU, Kansas, and Baylor. So all teams that have been ranked or preseason ranked or have kind of hovered around being competitive this year. If you went 3-2, you're happy. If you go in 2-3, you're slightly disappointed. You just can't go 1-4 in this stretch. You just can't finish the season really ugly. Oklahoma State, I think they're going to give you opportunities. You just can't let them battle back. And as far as Oklahoma State, they're going to come back in this performance. They don't want to drop 2 straight. Mike Gundy, he's a longtime veteran. He's been coaching this team for a long time. He's going to come out and motivate the troops, I'm sure. It just, can Sark motivate his guys? Can Sark get his guys to perform at their highest levels? Keep the game plan simple. Don't get ahead of yourself. Kill some clock. And I think that might be the pathway for them to beat Oklahoma State. Obviously, I'm going with Texas in this game. Kyle, Texas, Oklahoma State. How are you feeling as far as a prediction goes?
I will say it's a coin toss, and I don't have conviction either way. And for some people who maybe aren't deep into the college football weeds at this point, Oklahoma State is a running team now. In case you didn't know, Oklahoma State air raid offense, Big 12 of the previous generations. They're a running team. They control the ball by running, and they average like 5 yards a carry, which if that's in the NFL, that's like one of the best running teams in the league. And Oklahoma State is going to try and use big plays with the ground game, which Texas's run defense has been a question mark for many, many games now. So it'll be interesting to watch that matchup. Can Oklahoma State do what they want to do on offense? Because Spencer Sanders is no, shall we say, Mason Rudolph, who at one point was getting Heisman Trophy considerations during his last year at Oklahoma State. Spencer Sanders is just another quarterback in college football, and Oklahoma State has a power running game and a strong offensive line, and that's going to be the key to this game. So I'm going to take Oklahoma State because I'm going to stick to the 8-4 model I had at the start of the year, even though, again, it's a toss-up game. Texas is going to have like 4 toss-up games the rest of the season, and theoretically, if you're flipping a coin 4 times, the most probable outcome is 2-2. So over the last 4 games minus the Baylor game, I'll say Texas goes 2-2. But if I'm playing the most probable result, I will say that Oklahoma State avoids losing back-to-back Big 12 games for the first time in 4 seasons.
Drop below your predictions here. Are you going with Oklahoma State? Are you going with the Longhorns? We want to know your thoughts. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on social media. From Kyle Ledbetter and Juju Talk Sports. Stay safe, happy, and healthy. We'll see you on the next one.